It all started on an ordinary afternoon at one of the busiest airports in the country. Travelers rushed through security lines, pilots prepped for takeoff, and police officers stood watch near the arrivals gate. Just another day. But no one could have predicted what would unfold next. Within minutes, a situation spiraled out of control, and it all began with a routine stop. Or so they claimed. Two airport police officers, known for being aggressive and overly suspicious, approached a well-dressed man stepping out of a private vehicle. Without asking many questions or even checking ID, they slammed him against the hood of a car and threw on the cuffs. Witnesses stood frozen, some filming, others too stunned to speak. But things took a shocking turn when one TSA agent quietly stepped in and whispered something into one of the officers' ears. What he said made both cops freeze. The man they had just handcuffed. He wasn't a threat. He wasn't even a suspect. He was the sitting governor of the state, returning from a classified meeting in Washington, and the officers had no idea. What followed next was a scene no one could have imagined. The same cops who acted so tough were now shaking, stumbling over their words, and literally begging for forgiveness in front of everyone. But by then, the damage was done. The cameras were rolling. The story was already going viral. And the question on everyone's mind: was this really just a mistake, or something much deeper? Just hours before the incident, Governor Marcus Hill had been in a high-security meeting discussing new reforms targeting racial profiling and police accountability. He was known for being outspoken on issues involving law enforcement overreach, something that had earned him both praise and serious pushback. His sudden return to the airport was supposed to be low-key, with no press, no convoy, and no announcement. That's why he wasn't surrounded by a security detail. But somehow, despite the quiet arrival, he still caught the attention of two officers who claimed he looked suspicious. Now here's where things get murky. Several eyewitnesses said the governor had done nothing out of the ordinary, just exited his car, pulled out his phone, and began walking toward the terminal. But for some reason, the officers zeroed in on him. No questions, no warnings, just cuffs. And it wasn't just the act itself, but the way they handled it. Rough, loud, dismissive. They didn't know who he was, but they had already made up their minds. As news started to leak, people began digging into the background of the officers involved. It turns out this wasn't their first questionable stop. Complaints had been filed in the past, mostly ignored or brushed aside. But this time was different. They had handcuffed a sitting governor, and someone with a powerful voice in the justice reform movement. Still, there's a bigger question no one can shake. Was this really a case of mistaken identity, or a dangerous glimpse into how deep the problem really goes? By the time the news hit local stations, social media had already exploded. Footage from bystanders was everywhere, clips showing the governor being pushed around, his hands behind his back, confusion all over his face. But what really grabbed people was the moment the officers realized who he was. You could see it, the panic setting in, the sudden switch in their tone, the stuttering apologies. And still, the cameras didn't stop rolling. Inside the airport, security officials scrambled to control the situation, while the governor stayed surprisingly calm. He didn't lash out or raise his voice. Instead, he asked one question that left everyone silent. Why me? That question echoed far beyond the terminal walls. Was it racial profiling? Was it a lack of proper training? Or was it a bigger issue? A broken system that didn't care who got hurt, as long as it protected itself. Meanwhile, behind the scenes, pressure was building fast. The governor's staff rushed to do damage control, while political rivals seized the moment, some claiming the whole thing was staged for attention. Others said it was proof of everything the governor had been warning about. Then there were the officers, suspended but not charged, now at the center of a growing investigation. Their union stepped in, calling it an overreaction, while protesters gathered outside the airport demanding accountability. And in the middle of it all, whispers began to spread. Was this really a random incident, or had someone tipped the officers off? hoping things would go exactly this way. As the story spread like wildfire, national media picked it up, and pressure mounted from every side. Reporters camped outside the governor's office, waiting for a public statement. Civil rights groups demanded immediate action. Airport security footage was pulled, reviewed, and leaked in fragments. Every frame was picked apart: how the officers approached, how they reacted, and most importantly, what exactly was said during those first moments. The governor still hadn't spoken publicly, adding more fuel to the fire. People were on edge, waiting for answers that weren't coming fast enough. Behind closed doors, the governor's team was split. Some urged him to press charges. Others warned it could spiral even further, especially with elections just months away. But Governor Hill wasn't focused on politics. He wanted to know how this happened. Why his name hadn't been flagged. Why officers so quick to use force was still in uniform. And more troubling, why one of them had seemed to recognize him, hesitated, then went through with the arrest anyway. A whistleblower from within airport security then stepped forward, anonymously. They claimed there was chatter over the radio minutes before the stop. Something about a high-profile arrival and a watch-list confirmation. But the audio wasn't on the official logs. Someone had either wiped it or kept it off the books entirely. And suddenly, the situation didn't just look like racial profiling or poor judgment, it looked like a setup. That's when an unmarked envelope arrived at the governor's office. No return address, no message, just a flash drive. What was on it would change everything. The envelope had no markings, just a plain white wrapper left at the front desk of the governor's office by someone who vanished before anyone could ask questions. Inside, the flash drive contained one single video file. No label, no timestamp, but the moment it was played, the room fell silent. It showed a private security feed, clearly not meant for public viewing. The footage captured a dimly lit airport operations room, hours before the governor's flight landed. In the grainy video, two of the officers involved could be seen speaking with a man in a dark suit, someone who wasn't in any of the official reports. He wasn't a cop. He wasn't airport staff, and yet he handed them what looked like a printed photo, zoomed in on the governor's face. No sound, just muffled voices, but the body language said everything. One officer hesitated, the other nodded. They shook hands, and the mystery man disappeared out of frame. That moment changed everything, because it wasn't a random stop anymore. It was targeted, planned, and someone powerful had given the green light. The flash drive was now evidence, but no one knew who sent it or why. The governor's inner circle went into lockdown. Trust broke down. Phones were confiscated. One aide quit on the spot, refusing to say why. Another admitted they had seen the man in the video before, at a private fundraiser weeks ago, sitting next to one of the governor's top donors. Now, the question wasn't just who ordered the handcuffing, but who inside the governor's own camp might have helped make it happen. The governor called an emergency press conference. Cameras filled the room. Reporters whispered, trying to guess what was coming. Governor Hill stepped up to the mic, held the flash drive in his hand, and told the public exactly what had happened, without filters, without spin. He confirmed the footage, the mystery man, and the discovery that the arrest had been orchestrated from within. The room went dead quiet when he said it. Asterisk. This wasn't just profiling. This was a political hit job. Asterisk. Investigators moved fast. The man in the dark suit was identified. Thomas Klein, a lobbyist with deep ties to law enforcement unions and political rivals. He had been pushing hard to stop the governor's police reform bill. The officers? One of them admitted under pressure that he was asked to send a message. It wasn't about arresting the governor. It was about humiliating him, stopping the bill before it ever reached the floor. But the real twist came after the arrests were made. In a closed-door interview with federal investigators, Klein revealed he didn't act alone. He dropped a name that no one expected: Avery Shaw, the governor's longtime aide and closest advisor. Avery had fed Klein Hill's flight plans, schedule changes, and the exact time he'd land. When confronted, she didn't deny it. Her reason? Asterisk, you were getting too close to exposing everyone. Asterisk, Governor Hill was stunned. His trusted friend had turned against him. But with the truth finally out, the story took a new direction, one not just about corruption, but survival in a system built to silence those trying to change it. In the days that followed, the truth rippled through every corner of the state's political world. Avery Shaw was arrested and charged with conspiracy and obstruction, her betrayal sending shockwaves through both the governor's office and the public. The two officers involved were permanently removed from duty, and internal investigations across airport security and the police union began turning up years of overlooked complaints and suppressed evidence. What started as a humiliating airport arrest turned into a full-blown scandal that exposed the deep cracks in a